on this one.
We're live. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good early evening to those that are listening on the East Coast. Take a minute there, Christian friend. Share this page, like this page. Know that you're out there. Let us know that you're out there. Remember to go to the YouTube channel of Hurt for the Hurting. You can find over 30 to 40 interviews that we have done on this platform to highlight the goodness of God, Christian stories, ministry, so on and so on and so on. And we are excited, delighted, overwhelmed to have such special guests with us on today. The time that I have known these individuals are small, the depth is very long. And so we praise God for them. You're going to be able to hear their story. I'm going to get out the way as I try to do always and allow them to introduce themselves to you, allow you to take them down the journey of personal, intimate stories, but also to show the maternal courage, as I spoke earlier to Sister Harris, the maternal courage of so many women that often get overlooked, often because of being the dominant gender as men, and then even the context of which scripture is written in from a cultural standpoint. We sometimes use that as license to be abusive and dismissive to this special godly group. But this is not the case here today in this husband. And so he should be applauded. And this is not the case, obviously, with this wife who has stepped out and told her story very courageously, still maintain a biblical standard of identity at the same time. And there's so much to learn and so much we'll be able to glean from today. So go ahead, share this, like this page, and then make sure that you are in full support of what takes place here on the Hurt for the Hurting platform. I'm technically on vacation, but there's no way that I could stop and cease from having this conversation on today. Again, to the Harrises, thank you so much for doing this. Tell us how you're doing today. And why don't you just give us the love story on how you two wild, crazy kids met and how God drew you into one another.
You want to take this?
Well, it's a great question. I'm going to start and then I'm going to hand it off to my wife.
All right.
I was in my late 30s and I hadn't met anybody. I was waiting for the right one. And so Laura and I met in New Year's Eve of 98, almost January of 99. And we dated for about 14 months, went through 3 different types of premarital counseling. I was cautious.
Me too.
and we got married February of 2000. And wow. I was going through some things. God began to bring up my childhood to me and said, hey, I need you to start working on some things, some painful past. So I did. And so we were praying as to when we should start a family. And here I am, 40 years old, looking at becoming a dad. Okay, sounds good. And we conceived our first, not a problem. We had Nathan in October of 2002, incredible boy, a young man today, 17, almost 18, serving the Lord here locally at a church. In fact, right today, he's serving. 2004, we were blessed. We conceived and had a daughter, Gracie, November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving. Went a couple of years and we said, hey, Laura's like, I think we should have a third. No problem. No problem, yeah. Right? 2 down, easy go.
Yeah.
We experienced what you call a blighted ovum.
Yeah.
A blighted ovum, and I'll let Laura explain that to you, but that was a surprise for us. We had never experienced that before.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, let's go back. I like how you all just gave us the surface view here. So let me get us some specificity since you wouldn't give it to us. Let's start with ladies first here.
Sure.
The first time you laid eyes on Terry, what was your initial thought when you saw him? How did you all formally meet?
Okay. Well, this is actually a funny story. I think it's funny because I was at a Christian singles dance with some friends, And I had been warned that, maybe not all the attendees are Christian. So it kind of just, be cautious. And it was an interesting night. I was not husband shopping. I will tell you that. I just wanted to go and have some fun. And I told my friends, I said, I want to find one guy to dance with. This was my goal of the night. I said, there's going to be over 300 people there. I want to find one guy to dance with. And I was on the dance floor and I politely said, thank you very much to the gentleman I was with. And I started walking off and my two girlfriends were there. And one of them got asked to dance and she went this way. Another one got asked to dance, she went this way. And I had the single girl panic of, oh no, I'm going to be left by myself. And thankfully Terry was right there. And he asked me if I wanted to dance. I said, yes. So my initial response was just, please put me on the dance floor because, I just didn't, trust the men that were around there. But I have to tell you, George, this man can dance.
And I was dressed in black too.
This man can dance.
He was new, really? Man. I was dressed in black. I was the man in black. I looked good.
Yeah. And so my thought was, yes, I found the guy to dance with me. Not knowing that, 20 years later, we'd be happily married, after 20 years.
Raising young kids. Listen, tell us what this dance was. It was not a Christian event that you all met at.
No, it was. But
it wasn't all. It wasn't some shady characters. Y'all didn't know each other, no friends of a friend. Just happened to be the guy there that that moment. I've heard about at dances where you. I've heard about. That, it's just you just a good dance partner at this point. Not a spouse. Not a friend.
No.
Somebody to dance with, and he put the moves on. Terry, what's going on in your mind during this time?
I'm thinking I was really drawn to her beautiful eyes and those dark eyebrows. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And she could dance. I had tried dancing with a lady or two before, and it was really difficult. And I come from a background of dancing. Yeah. In the 70s and 80s, I just loved to dance. So I learned, I took the lessons, I practiced, I worked hard, won some trophies. And, by 1998, it was kind of on the shelf. But, but here's the thing. Although she wasn't husband shopping, we started dancing, I think it was 10 o'clock hour, 10:15. By 11:30, she's, interrogating me. Mm-hmm. Oh, you go to church? Where do you serve? What church? What do you do? Who's the pastor?
What's the pastor's name?
I'm like, what? What's up with this? And she was like, she wanted to make sure that what I was saying and sounded good in our conversations to that point was valid.
Hey.
And so
I'm a smart girl. I'm assessing.
Even though she wasn't shopping, she was definitely vetting.
That's it. There you go. I will give him that.
Fair enough. Makes sense in this world. Makes sense in this world.
Exactly.
Well, tell us what happened after that. After that encounter, what happened?
I got sick.
What happened?
I got sick.
Really? Talk us through that. 4
days.
Yeah.
Couldn't see her. She got all mad. So we were dating on the phone. So finally, a week later, she goes, "I'm coming over." I was living in Westwood in an apartment at the time.
It was a good couple weeks, wasn't it?
Was it 2 weeks ago?
Oh, yeah.
And she says, "Okay, that's it. I'm coming over."
Yeah.
Somebody's got to take care of you, man. And so she did. And we went to a thing at the time back then with Diane Cannon. One of our first dates was a God party. It was a big Bible study, if you will. Diane Cannon was heading up, and it was in Beverly Hills. And we tried that out. It wasn't our thing. And so we just decided to go out and have some coffee or a meal. And we ended up, establishing a fun routine. But the deal breaker for me was our first real date was that following Valentine's weekend. It was Valentine's of '99. And so we decided, I don't know how we got into a competition here. She's an athlete of the year, by the way, for her junior high and her high school here locally, athlete of the year. And so we got into some competition about who could do the best date. I don't even remember how that came about. I'm like, well, okay, you want to do this? Let's do this. And so we're sitting at an Italian restaurant in Studio City where they sing. The waiters and waitresses sing to you. And we're dialoguing about this. And I said, well, okay, we'll do this. So we decided to set up on Valentine's weekend. And my go was first. It was a Saturday night, was it?
I don't remember.
I think it was. And so I took her to that Italian restaurant again. And then I surprised her. We went and did a little bit of bowling or video games. And I beat her, and that made her mad.
Really?
Yeah, we played air hockey, and she got all mad. And I'm like, wow, who is this chick? So she's all bent because I beat her. But I soothed it by driving her to Van Nuys Airport and turning the corner, and there was a helicopter there with a lone pilot standing outside waiting for our arrival. And so she laughed and she got all giddy. And so we got into the helicopter.
Listen at you.
And I said, by the way, here's a cassette. And we handed it to the pilot. And it was music compiled. That was some of her favorite songs I had learned of in 6 weeks. I kind of had a, mix match. So while we were flying over, and this is when it was a gorgeous full moon night. The city of LA had on the big buildings had big heart on several of them. And we're flying around LA on this gorgeous clear night, and then up the Malibu coast line and listening to her favorite songs on the headphones.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got major points that night.
Yeah. He pulled out all the stops.
Yes. And I said, in the competition, he won.
But not really, because the next night was hers.
Uh-huh.
And so she came over, just had a box of supplies, my little apartment. Most of the time I just ate either out or frozen meals. And I had a little 425 square foot single in Westwood Village. And she said, okay, out. And she proceeded to turn my apartment when I came back into an incredible little romantic, a romantic experience where she had decorations and she had a pasta smell on the stove. The windows were steamed. Candles and a table. And I walked in and I'm like, wow. So that's when she won my heart.
Wow.
And a year ago, and a year later, in February, we were married. Valentine's weekend, y'all got married.
Yeah.
2000.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about those early years. Were they smooth and selling? Is this is peace and perfect, or is it? I imagine, Terry, you being older, used to your liberation and your freedom, that may have been an adjustment for you.
Well, here's the adjustment. In November 2000, we decided to go to London, and
just for fun.
Just for fun, but the Lord had other things in mind. And so we had traveled around a lot of places when we were dating, and we had gone to Hawaii for 8 days for our honeymoon. This was something Laura wanted to do, and I said, sure. And we were in Westminster Abbey on weekday morning, 11 o'clock London time. And I was standing there next to a coffin, and I touched it. When I touched it, I went into full blown panic attack. And I turned white, got dizzy, started to fall. Laura's watching me from across the room, and she's mouthing, "Are you okay?" And her and a security guard quickly come and help me out and help me outside where I can get a breath of fresh air. And I had no idea what God was doing, none. But it was early in our marriage, and God said, I need you to remember who you are, what you experienced. And so I began at that time not knowing what to do, because all the demons of hell were full force in my brain. I thought I was going to go insane. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't be in anything warm or cold. I couldn't be in an elevator. I couldn't be around people. And here I am 6,000 miles away from home. And we're touring London. I'm not sleeping at night. And it was an eye opener. It was not what I expected at all. And it's been a 20-year journey of healing, all those 10 years of abuse. But God has remained faithful. He wanted to stop the generational abuse that was going on in my family and start a new generation of children serving him. And we have 3 children here, and we have 3 babies in heaven. And it's interesting, Pastor George, is that my older brother got married, was divorced. His wife was killed while they were separated, and he has 2 daughters. My younger sister was married, is divorced, and she has 2 daughters. God would not allow the male seed to continue in our family line except through me. As I did the spiritual work that he was calling me to do, the breaking of the generational curses, he wasn't going to let the seed continue. And that's what he's done. And this woman stepped into this marriage not knowing. And again, I had no idea. Had I known, I probably would have run and never got married. But God said to me in London, as surely as I got the children of Israel, because I was reading in my devotional, begging for help. And it was at that time in late November, talking about the children of Israel. And they're leaving Egypt and going across the Red Sea. And the Lord said to me one day while she was taking a shower, I was in the Word in the hotel room. He said, don't you think that those walls of water were incredibly intimidating to the children of Israel? And he said, as surely as you feel like the walls of sanity are going to come crumbling down on you and you're going to lose your mind, that's how they feel. But I promise you this, as surely as I got them across, I will get you through this. And Terry, I'll do it on solid ground. And when I came back, I started counseling in January with a PhD counselor who had been through what you call ritual abuse. And God just led me to her through one circumstance after another. And within our first 3 sessions, she immediately recognized by some of the things I was saying about basements and dark basements and stuff like that, she knew what was going on. So we had that as a start. And that's when we were praying about having kids, and God wanted us to literally wait almost a year so that I could do a lot of spiritual warfare and end the curse before we started having children. But he literally told Laura one morning, today's the day. And she woke me up early. We conceived. And I mean, our marriage, Pastor George, has been based on only Christ and prayer. Tell them about our experience in dating with prayer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I would just say it when we first started actually dating, it just, God put a stop to it really quickly, just more like a left turn, I would say. We had a date and it just didn't go well. And, we kind of were doing the typical dating things.
Went to a club.
Yeah, went to a club, went to Newport for dinner and
made
stuff.
Out.
And God was just like, no, this isn't for you guys. And so I'll never forget, I went jogging and the Lord has really impressed upon me that, he wanted to do something different with us and he wanted us to pray. And so I, and it was one of those, it was really early on, but it was a crossroads, and it was either we pray and we get on the right track, or we're not going further with this. And
that Saturday night, she's talking about her jog on Sunday. That Saturday night, I left Huntington Beach to go back to Westwood, and I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
I literally yelled at God and said, fine, you don't want me to date anybody? Fine, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out. And on the way home and through the night, he kind of said, Terry, I need you to stop.
Yeah.
I'm the Lord of your life. You're going to do this on my terms.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to do everything in prayer. I want you to start praying with this woman now. So I said, okay, because I've always been a believer in prayer. I've spent a lot of years fasting and praying. In fact, 2 years leading up to this, George, I was actually working in the desert for a local Yellow Page company there that were friends of mine. And I was fasting and praying for 2 years, every Wednesday, and really seeking God's face from 96 to 98. And so I'd come off some 40-day fasts, and I was going to Jack Hayford's church at the time. He was doing a 40-day fast, so I was in the 40-day fast. And so God told me, stop. I want you to pray with her. And so on Sunday, we talked on the phone for a long time, and he said, we're going to stop. We're going to start over. And right now we're starting this relationship based on Christ and Christ alone. And every day we're going to pray. Every day we're going to pray together.
Did you all have any mentors, any couples that were helping you along the line there? Or was it just something intuitively that you both knew, hey?
Man, our journey's been so unique, Pastor George. I wish.
Yeah.
I did have this at KKLA, because I had started KKLA 1 week before I met her. Believe that? December 23rd, God took me out of the desert and got me hired at KKLA. December 31st, I met her. And there was a Pastor Lau there that was kind of the chaplain of the radio station. And we did some pre-counseling with him. And he was a fire-eyed guy. And he had gone through a stroke and everything, but he was a Christ-focused pastor there locally.
Yeah, he was tough.
And most of his counseling was to talk people out of trying to get married. That's literally. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to try to talk you guys out of getting married.
Yeah.
And we were planning on getting married in June of 2000. And after our counseling session, he says, I think you should move to February. So that was a good sign. Yeah. But Pastor Lau challenged me one day. Laura and I had gone through some pre-counseling. I was starting to get the jitters. I was starting to get anxiety. And so I came to the station one day and I was fasting. And I saw him in the hallway and go, hey, Pastor Lau, I'm fasting today. And I just want to know if there's anything I can pray for you. God said all this. Pastor Lau looks at me and goes, what are you fasting for? I said, well, I'm wondering if I should really go through this relationship with Laura. You know, I'm feeling like God's saying no. And he got mad at me. And he looked at me and he said, you listen to me, young man. Once you start down this road of counseling and you get God's blessing on this, you are no longer making decisions on your own. Have you talked to Laura about this? I said, no. He goes, the first thing you need to do is consult her. Get her opinion, because God's no longer just thinking of you as an individual. He said, and if you don't listen to me, you're going to be a bachelor to the rapture. And he closed the door on my face. So I went to the church praying, and I said, whoops. Well, I had already called Laura. I didn't tell him this, and said, I think we need to take a break. And it all came crumbling down on me, George. I started to realize that I had made a mistake. And so I drove all the way to Huntington Beach, and we met at her apartment after she was done working that day. And she just sat there in tears. She goes, how could you do this without me? Whoa. So when I've needed it, God has sent somebody to give me a little rod in the back.
Spiritual slap.
Yeah, God is just that good. He'll prepare you. And this is my next question for Laura, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Talk to me about the maternal instincts, how that helped you through navigating through this, even the marriage.
Yeah.
And now, is that something you embrace, or was that something you're like, oh no, I have to be a healer now. I have to be, I have to walk through something. I didn't really sign up for this.
Well, and I, you know, Terry likes to, you know, he's always very quick to compliment me, and I, you know, appreciate that about him. But, you know, I'll be honest, and he knows this too, that I mean, Terry knows, you know, this, anything like this I didn't want a part of. You know, I even asked him when we were dating about our history and if he had any, you know, a history of mental illness or depression or anxiety. Like, I mean, these were things that, you know, we talked about. And Terry, you know, at the time, again, you know, his memories didn't start coming back till after his panic attack. So that was, you know, after we were married for 7 months. But, you know, at the time, you know, when we were dating, I was kind of doing my due diligence, because if any of this, God knew that if any of this came out, while we were still dating, you know, I would have left the relationship. I mean, you know, and I don't mean to, you know, sound cruel about that. I mean, this wasn't anything that he had done. He's a victim in this, but just to, you know, invite that into my life, you know, that was not something that I wanted, you know, but God knows that I'm also very loyal. And so, you know, he used that to wait till after we were married. He knew I was committed, and, you know, to reveal it. So, yeah, it hasn't been an easy journey. And this is completely foreign to me because, you know, I grew up with, you know, the Brady Bunch life, and, you know, everything was, any kind of abuse or anything like that is completely foreign to how I was raised.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you processing that? What is your support system? I know prayer, obviously, and those things, but what is just your support system through this and trying to now walk through something that you really, again, wasn't expecting, didn't sign up for, and more explicitly, had made it clear in the dating process, you know, questions, and, and the assumption is that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah. You know, it's, I think just like anything, it's been, you know, like this, it's been a process, you know, and,
acceptance, rejection,
you know,
acceptance, rejection.
Yeah.
Acceptance, rejection.
You know, I am pretty open about it. And thankfully, you know, Terry supports me in that, to where I am able to talk about it to friends and things like that. It's an interesting thing being a spouse in this kind of relationship, because you don't want to betray the confidence that you have with your husband, but yet, you know, it's such a burden that you do need to share about it to a point to your friends. And thankfully I have, you know, great friends, and I have, you know, great family members and things like that, to where, you know, I can share it, but it's always finding that line. And I even started writing a blog. I did a blog a few years ago, and, you know, and I think that was really good. And it was specifically reaching out to spouses, you know, who have a spouse, you know, man or a woman, who's been abused, and how you navigate that as a spouse, because I do think it's a special journey that we need to take. And that's one of the elements of it, is how much do you share without betraying the confidence that your spouse has with you, but yet, you know, relieving some of your burden. But one thing I can say, you know, for my husband is that he understands it, and he's completely supportive. And he, time and time again, will say, you know, whatever you need to do, whatever you need to, you know, to say, or, you know, to do to kind of, you know, heal from it on my end. You know, he's always been really supportive with that, and not defensive, which is huge too.
Yeah.
You know, he's never lashed out at me. He's like, well, you don't know what this is like, and I'm the one going through it. You know, he's never gone there. You know, he understands that this is a journey that he and I are going through together, you know, and it has, you know, it's something we deal with every day, literally every day. Yeah.
Well, he didn't lash out because you never dehumanized him. So it wasn't really no reason to lash out. Talk to me about the burden of women in general, not the specificity, but sort of always seemingly being on that track. I want to get into the book here. This is what I want to lead into.
Sure.
It may not be this particular situation, be it not just as a wife, but as a mother, grandmother, the maternal nature of females. This is why we wanted to do Wonderful Wednesday, not about trying to make gender distinctions and things of that nature, but just trying to highlight and trying to sort of pulling back the curtains and seeing just the natural flow that you have to do as a healer. Again, it may not be this level. And then in the context of ministry, where the male figure is usually up front, but the mother, the woman, the wife, sometimes the mother is actually the one pulling the strings to enable that male figure to do what he's doing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I've had to work through. Like you're saying, that the whole maternal part of it, is that, Terry's abuse happened when he was really young. And so it's something where I've had to consciously almost remind myself, okay, this is my husband, because I don't think it's healthy within a marriage. You don't want to look at your spouse as like a wounded child, And so it's been interesting to kind of navigate that. And also another thing, talking, to women and other women maybe who've had this situation, a lot of my anger isn't even towards his perpetrators, it's towards his mom. Because as a mom and how I would completely, cut off a limb from my children, it's like, how come she wasn't there to protect him? And how did she not see these warning signs? And how did she not, I can go down the list, but, that's one thing as a mom and as a woman, I don't know if I could ever really wrap my head around that,
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. That's a beautiful segue. 2 healthy children, and then the struggles begin.
Yes.
And I'm sure you all have done this in your own life and reflecting the parallelisms that's taking place and how God in his grace prepares us for the hurting healing happens to us. Talk to us about the 3rd child and the journey that you went on and which ultimately leads to the book.
Yeah. So, the first 2, no problem conceiving, healthy pregnancies, full term, not a problem. And so when it came time for us to, to have a 3rd, and a 3rd wasn't even really, it was something that it was kind of an option, like, okay, we knew we didn't want just an only child. So we knew we wanted at least 2. And they were like, well, we'll see about a 3rd, and, so when it got to that time where we thought, okay, we do want a 3rd child, by this time I was at late 30s, but we hadn't had issues before. And so with the first miscarriage, it's what's called a blighted ovum. And what that is when you lose the baby really early on, probably within the first, 5, maybe 6 weeks. And so it had been long enough to where, we definitely knew I was pregnant. But we went into, to get our ultrasound, and there wasn't a baby there. And honestly, at that, for this one, it was just kind of like, like I almost felt like, okay, I got my miscarriage out of the way, because it's something that, obviously is very common for women. And so it wasn't really as damaging per se till, the second one. And, with the second one, I was further along. We had to do a D&C.
Normal chromosome.
Yeah, the baby too had a normal chromosome, and it was a baby boy. We named him Joseph, and so we don't have any reason as to why we lost that baby, because I assumed with my age it would be chromosomal. But since the chromosomes were normal, we really don't know why. And so that one really floored me. I was devastated from there. And that was when we kind of reached a point to where, we literally started praying, okay, Lord, just, this is too painful, take the desire away from us for the child. And he didn't. And so then we looked into adoption, right? So we're like, okay, maybe we're, supposed to adopt. So there was like an adoption class through our church. We started going through that. Well, Terry and I had completely different ideas of what adoption should look like. And so that seemed like that was a closed door too. He wanted a baby. I wanted an older child. He wanted international. I wanted domestic. Like it just, nothing was matching up.
Right.
And so then we thought, well, geez, should we try again? And it was one of those, we never had trouble getting pregnant. And so we had to be very, conscious with the decisions that we were making. And so then we got pregnant again. And unfortunately, this one was a baby girl and lost her. And this one was a chromosomal issue. And so I was I must have been 40 now. And 40 or 41. And And so that one was a chromosomal issue. She had a thing called Turner syndrome. And so we lost her, and we named her Angela, and Angela's, you know, the girl in the book. And then, you know, and by this point too, I mean, things were just, you know, obviously really, really difficult. And again, God's not taking the desire away. And, you know, on a spiritual level, it was really difficult. It's like, God, why would you have this desire, you know, in our hearts, but, you know, not come full circle with it? You know, it just didn't make sense. And believing that God is good.
Christmas Eve, 2009.
Yeah, that was, Christmas Eve was really tough because my sister with the second baby got pregnant at the same time, and we were supposed to deliver within 2 weeks of each other.
And she announced it on Christmas Eve at the big, her family has a tradition, about 25, 30 of us get together for Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And she made the announcement that night.
Yeah. And so that, you know, so that was really tough. So I got, you know, so my sister's going through a healthy pregnancy while I'm losing the babies. And I'm sure there's women that are watching this now are like, yeah, I've been there, you know, and, you know, seeing a baby with a newborn, or a woman with a newborn, or seeing a pregnant woman and, you know, getting that stab in the heart, you know, it's a really hard journey. And so,
what did you need from your husband during this time?
He was great. He was great. Really just somebody just to understand, really just somebody just to, to pray with, to be a support.
From the desire was right.
Yeah. He confirmed that, you know, because the desire was with him too. And so it was just really hard to navigate because, you know, trying to believe, okay, God is good, but yet he's given us the desire, and then he's taking these babies away from us, you know, and feeling as though, you know, God, you know, with a breath, you know, can have us deliver a healthy baby, you know, and yet for him not to, was really hard to navigate.
One of the things, Pastor George, that I tried to do during this time was also protect her from comments.
Yeah.
It's easy to say things like, well, just be grateful for the ones you have.
Yeah.
Oh, God's got another angel. Well, I guess this is God's will. Just, again, do you have two healthy ones? Give them thanks. Yeah. Well, that's true. And then family, it got pretty intense with her family. I actually had to have a conversation with her mom and dad alone. Some things were coming up, and Laura was withdrawing from the family because the family was getting angry at her.
Yeah. They thought I was just being stubborn. You know, they thought it was just like, you know, like we weren't turning to God for this. Like it was just me saying, I want a baby. So this is what, you know, they were just thought I would, you know, which was far from the truth, you know.
And, you know, bless her mom, she was literally saying, stop it.
Yeah.
And
let me ask this question, Laura, and I want you to take a moment here and speak to the woman that's watching. Again, it may not be that same situation. It may be marriage. It may be that I have the desire.
Yeah.
I want it. I have not done anything wrong. God, why did you give me this desire? Lord, give me contentment. Not giving me contentment, but navigating through those realities. It could be for marriage. It could be for that profession.
Yeah.
And not having the Terry Harris there.
Yeah.
Or having the Terry Harris there, but not operating as the Terry Harris.
Yes.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I do believe God's gonna, you know, provide, and, you know, whether you have a supportive spouse, you know, or not, you know, everybody deals with loss, you know, and everybody knows the grieving and the burden that comes with that. And so, you know, I'm grateful that I do have a loving spouse and somebody who is a God-fearing man and who's walking this journey with me. And as Terry said, you know, prayer's been a big foundation of our relationship. But, you know, for the women that don't have that, you know, I would say to find it, you know, find it through church and find it through friends. And, you know, especially when it comes to miscarriage, it's really surprising to me as we've been more vocal with our story, how many women and women that I know, and, you know, women I would call friends say, oh yeah, that happened to me. And I had no idea. And so I think once women especially start opening up and talking about their struggles and their loss, you know, we're not alone. You are not alone. And, you know, it's really healthy to dialogue about it and to heal from it. And that was one of the reasons, you know, Terry wanted to write the book, was to promote that healing, you know, for women, not just to run from it, but to walk through it and heal from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us about what the church could do better and to minister to women. You talked about this having to defend. And I'll give an analogy, and we have a guest coming on that her and a friend of hers next week that kind of schooled me to this, and a couple of weeks actually, but schooled me to this, and it's something that as a pastor I want to be more intentional about.
Yes.
Give this an example. Mother's Day.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
There were 3 bad Mother's Days.
Yes.
4 bad Mother's Days in a row.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah. But not just that, how the church does that.
Yes.
And oftentimes it's not sensitive to
yes.
The other issues that are going on. Talk to me about what the church can do in general based off of that example, and even maybe some ideas or concepts you have to honor women, be a Women's Day, Mother's Day, Women's Month, Women's Conference. Yeah.
You know, I did reach out to different churches. I actually, and again, this was years ago, and so hopefully it's different now, because you know, this was over 10 years ago that we had, you know, our last miscarriage. But I looked into churches, and some really big churches, and I was actually surprised that there wasn't some sort of support group or something. You know, there was divorce. I found one for infertility. That I didn't find one, you know, specifically for, you know, miscarriage. And the infertility one, they said, well, you know, you can come here, but I figured the last thing that, you know, women want in that group is somebody says, well, I have 2 healthy kids, and darn it, I can't get my 3rd, you know, and that just didn't seem like it was a fit for me. And so, yeah, I did feel pretty alone, you know, to be quite honest. It was a very lonely time. And so it's so prevalent.
Let me pause real quick because I want to accentuate what you just said there. You have 2 children already. It's easy for the perception to be, just be satisfied with that. I wish I had a husband. I wish I had 2.
Yes.
You oftentimes, especially in my experience in the context of church, you see that happen within the women's circle. So, you know, you're thinking about, or at least you get to go out and have fun and do this, or how do we holistically address that? And I apologize for cutting you off. How do we holistically address that perception where you don't see that with men? You don't see that with men. Men are able to be celebrated, whatever they are. You know, if they're the cool bachelor like the Fonz, if they're Mr. Dad, you know, or Daddy, you know, Dad Mom. I think that was going on around, or Daddy Girl, something of that going around. Is always this illusion that the man is wearing the red cape, and whatever the woman is doing is just be happy, you know, smile, look pretty.
It's you know, the older I get, the more I realize that, you know, everybody is dealing with something. I mean, truly, you know, you can take a snapshot of somebody's life and say, oh, you know, this looks perfect. You know, if you look at our family photo, you know, you would probably have that assumption, you know, and, you know, we do have 3 amazing kids now, you know. For those of you who don't know our story, you know, we finally did have a healthy boy, you know, and so that was our 3rd. And I was 42 years old at that time. So, you know, the Lord did answer those prayers, and He did come full circle to it. But you would never guess that. If you saw us at church and, you know, you saw us with our kids, you would just think, oh gosh, you know, they must have the idyllic life, you know, not knowing of my husband's abusive past, not knowing of the journey that we've been to. And, you know, I wouldn't say it's not even just for women, but it's just for everybody in general that, you know, we can't just take a snapshot of somebody and make assumptions and just and know what they've been through and continue to go through.
I would encourage as a church to acknowledge them in different ways, allow some type of opportunity for them to just voice, to have a prayer, to have some conversations. And maybe leading up to Mother's Day, you would have a special time for women who want to be mothers but can't. I probably wouldn't even do that after Mother's Day. I would probably do it before. And because, Pastor George, I think it's like 30% or more of these women, maybe 35%, have had a miscarriage or more. That's not even including the ones who are suffering about abortion. That's not even including those.
Exactly.
So we got a lot of women suffering in silence. And if you're, as a pastor, saying, from your standpoint as a couple who went through this, what could the church do? I'd say, open the doors of opportunity for them to speak their voice, to have a dinner, to have an outing, a coffee, a tea, a something. In today's world of virtual, whatever, but just say, hey, you know what? We want to acknowledge you. We want to give you an opportunity to just share your pain, because Laura, she suffered quietly, but she did have pivotal people that she could go to and just share enough to where, you know, sometimes it was between me and her where the tears flowed and flowed and flowed, and I felt as helpless as I could be. And the one thing, Pastor George, I would encourage you to mentor your people to do is don't comment. Don't offer advice. Just listen. Because Laura would correct me. I don't need you to tell me what to do right now. I need you to listen to me. Okay, honey, you got my attention. I'm sorry.
Job friends were at their best in Job chapter 1. They said their most powerful words in Job chapter 1, and that was nothing. They came, they said, they wept. I preached a funeral. I used that text, show up, sit down, shut up.
I like the idea of just, you know, let's say for Mother's Day, you know, have just a wall, just, you know, a big piece of paper or something to where, you know, people can write names. You know, we could write baby Harris, you know, in memory of, you know, or the babies that we couldn't have, you know, just to acknowledge them, you know, but definitely have somebody in the church that if somebody were to call, like I was calling 10 years ago and couldn't find a person to even talk to in the church, you know, at the very least have at least one person who could be a go-to person, but hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Hey, this happened to me 5 years ago. Let's go talk about it, you know, and to be a support for that woman, for sure.
Well, what we know is a support.
Yay!
I recognize that.
This is a support. Screenshot that, ladies and gentlemen. Take a picture of it. The author is sitting there right now. Is birthed off of that experience, and it should be celebrated. This book should be celebrated, and I don't just say that to flatter the guest because he wrote it, but it is something that opens a door, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. My feelings won't be hurt. Opens the door to have those difficult conversations, to begin to use one imagination and speculation about the what ifs of life. And then at the same time, celebrate that there is a magician that is moving above and orchestrating all these things, and have that powerful word, purpose behind it. And it's amazing. I think of John 9, of how Jesus used mud to heal a man that was born blind. And again, I tried to reference services in this thing, but I call that message, "Are you ready for a dirty miracle?" And so often we want the miracle, but we don't want to get dirty. And that's the same thing I think in this book. When I think of this, Cynthias Dance, the author's going to tell us, him and his wife going to tell us a little bit more about it, how to get it in a second. But I hope you are able to see that the ink that had been spilt on the pages to formulate this literary masterpiece is not birthed out of money grab. It's not birthed out of a need for attention. It's birthed off of a desire to heal and to hurt and to be able to have healthy conversations about that process. And so I've said enough. I'm gonna let the author and the maternal push of this.
The editor.
Use my words, my overuse of that term. I just do it on purpose to stress it. Talk to us about this work, and then ultimately where we can find it and how we can support it.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor George. Cynthia's Dance is really the key. Is chapter 1 and 2. It's the pain. It's the character Madeline is real to me. Laura really poured a lot of herself into it. I had written it a little bit surfacey, and I had skipped over some things, and she and a friend had both said, no, we're not going to skip over this. We're going to go into this. And then chapter 2, where we see where baby Cynthia is and what heaven looks like. And the whole point of that, Pastor George, is in our pain, we've got to bring in heaven's perspective. If we don't, we toil in vain. We're here because of heaven's perspective. Heaven's perspective says Christ not only understands our pain, he entered into our pain. And because we experience pain, if we'll allow ourselves to experience the pain and move through it, he will then share his glory with us. That's biblical. If you resist the pain, if you resist and reject the notion of facing it and going through it, you reject your own rewards and everything that God has for you here on this earth and in the life to come. Trust me, in heaven, you're going to want your rewards. You're going to want to hear the king say, well done, my special daughter. You endured that loss. I entered in. The Father's going to say to you, oh, Dolores, Betty, Rebecca, Janine, whatever your name is, Miss Dolores, I know your pain of loss because I lost my child. I lost him. I lost him. I know what it's like to lose a child, my only child. But I raised him in a way that's so unique to the universe so that when you do lose, you gain. You gain. You gain not only here, but forever. Because God has other options for you. He doesn't want you. A lot of women, Pastor George, we're working with a woman who is the digital mastermind at the Rock Church in San Diego, Maylene Starkey. She sent out 400 emails to influencers. She got 5 responses of positive. The rest are saying, if it's not current issues, I can't touch it, or a lot of them are, this is too painful for me to go to. Man, what are we doing? We're stuck. We're a generation of stuck people in our own law saying, God, I can't trust you to face this. And trust me, I know in London, he put me to where I had no option but to move forward. Otherwise, I'd still be in London, living homeless life. I had to get on the plane. I had to face my demons. I had to go through the psychology. I had to learn the story. I had to remember. I had to trust him. I had to walk across the Red Sea and am walking across the Red Sea with him hand in hand. Women, husbands, I'm begging you, stop staying stuck. Please allow heaven's perspective on your pain. Read chapter 2. Imagine what it would be like if God were to send somebody into your life to release you from your pain. I promise you that person would lead you through it, not away from it, not around it. That's the answer. You got to go through it. CynthiasDance.com is where you can find it. There's links there. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, ebook. We love you. There's a story there. There's a video. There's background on us. Man, I'm passionate about this. Pastor George, I'm writing my second novel. I'm in chapter 7. I lost 3 babies due to miscarriage. I lost 3 friends to suicide. Moon Dance, my second one, is about suicide. God's called me to deal with the real pain stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny though, as an author, people, they shy away from it. And I'm like, please don't shy away. I promise you, if you allow the experience of the story, if you will allow yourself to experience the story, God will meet you in that story and will bring healing into your life. I promise you. We've got 17 5-star reviews, and people are saying, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. I needed this book to be written more than it needed to be written. I'm just encouraging people to face your pain, go through it. Don't stay stuck.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Laurie, Laura, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to just just kind of do a quick little synopsis. So, Cynthias Dance is a story about a woman, Madeline, who loses her child to miscarriage, and the child's name is Cynthia, and we get, as Terry was saying, through heaven's perspective, Cynthia's in heaven, and her heart's desire is to meet her parents, and so the Lord lets her come down as a young woman to try to find her parents. And it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful, like, as good as that concept is, because a lot of people will just respond, wow, when they hear it. The story stands up to that concept. It's beautiful. It's a page turner. I'm so proud of my husband. He did an excellent job with it. I mean, I genuinely like it. I hadn't read a single word of it till it had finished. And I prayed, I'm like, please, Lord, help me like this, because it would have been horrible if I didn't. But it's a beautiful story that, we can rally around, and it gives God glory. And it's a beautiful story of healing and how God takes it full circle. There's laughter, there's tears, and I would encourage anybody to read it. Even men like it too. Yeah.
Yes, I'm an example.
There you go.
An example of that, and I'll testify that as well.
Yes.
We've already picked up a few copies, but we're going to pick up a few more for our listeners to get. And we'll make sure we'll continue to support that Mount Sinai Church. Will probably be a good book of the month for us in the month of May.
Thank you.
So when the Lord gets us through this pandemic, and even if He does it, we'll be able still in the virtual reality, as we're doing now, support and bring this topic to the hand. We accept the challenge of doing a better job in what Terry talked about, in a general perspective of having those conversations about pain. It's not just here. We see the nation struggling, I think, in my opinion, struggling with having a conversation about race. And I think a lot of that is not because people are willfully ignorant or willfully suppressing it, is because it's such a difficult conversation to have. And there's so many emotions worn on their sleeve. I can be as guilty of that as anybody else.
Yeah.
The only thing I ask, and we saw that in this story, and we saw that, Terry, with your passion from your personal experience, and that's the thing that I think a lot of African Americans should try to communicate. Just for a second, understand what we everybody else. I think the rest of the world is George Floyd, and oh my goodness. And for us, it was graphic to see. It was all to see, but we can list names after names. As name has nothing to do with police brutality, even experiences after experience after experience. That we believe comes from layers of things that need to be addressed. But when everyone crawls up and balls up in those conversations, and why are they dressed? No. It's okay.
Yeah, and when you
have those difficult conversations.
Oh yeah, and when you have those real conversations, that's when you can really connect, and that's when you can really heal. People of any color, that's when you can connect, is when you can have those real conversations about real pain.
Yeah, and I'm talking about that as pain across the board. I'll use that as an analogy, and it becomes polarizing. But it's not just race. It's what Terry talked about: suicide, mental health, women issues, miscarriage, sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, molestation, some from their own parent that brought them in the world. These things are what people in our pew are dealing with. And we get up and we want to argue about so many surface things because they're so black and white. And we don't want to deal with the more nuanced things because that will call more than John 3:16. That will need more than Psalm 23. As wonderful and great as those passages are, it makes us run and look at a Psalm 88 that begins with dark and ends with darkness.
Your Psalm today, Psalm 3. Man,
Psalm 88, Psalm
right now.
3, Genesis 38. These are the things that we don't want to wrestle through with in nuance and be able to say, hey, here's where I stand, here's where I don't stand. But what is the undercurrent issue? You may not agree what I feel about racism in America. It may be totally different, but forget about that. What about the undercurrent issue of loving one another, empathy to one another? We all can agree on that. You see it in politics too. We may not agree on that. We all may not agree on that. But the things we agree on, no one ever talks about. Everybody agrees on infrastructure. Like everybody believes infrastructure, but nobody talks about infrastructure. Everybody agrees on quality health care, but nobody ever talks about quality health care. It's who's going to get it and how they're going to get it, who's going to pay for it. I think it's an attack of the enemy. I think it's an attack of the enemy that we as spirit have to be in tune with spiritual warfare to do. And so I just said that to say, hey, I want to do a better job in the role in ministry of myself. And I think you all are leading examples of doing a better job in this book. And that's why it's important that our listeners do that. Well, thank you all so much for doing so. Before we leave, we got to leave on a lighter note. So tell us one of your more embarrassing experiences as a couple.
Embarrassed.
Our honeymoon. Poor Laura got.
How is it? Well, there's a couple things that happened. Which one are you talking
about? Laura's ears got clogged. She couldn't hear. I guess it was the plane ride that really triggered it, but she spent 2 or 3 days in the bathroom of our hotel room trying to clean out her ears and get so mad.
Yeah.
And then we went on this.
I won't tell you what came out. It was pretty nasty.
Oh, yellowish, greenish, brownish. I'm like, woman, don't you
welcome to marriage.
And then we went to the snorkeling area in Maui. That's supposed to be really exclusive and really nice. And her brother, my brother-in-law, told us about it, so we followed her. Well, you have to step across lava rock to get there. And Laura hit a soft lava rock spot. Bam, her leg went through it, gashed it up. Yeah. She's bleeding. She's mad.
I still have the scar.
She's like, I'm not like this. Everything's going wrong, and I'm not like this. I go, I still love you. I still love you. She hadn't seen London yet.
I hadn't seen London yet.
So I'm glad I made it easier on her. I'm glad I said, don't worry about the earwax and the gash.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you. I'm going to close out in prayer if you all don't mind. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been enlightening. It has been wonderful. Please, those that are listening, like this page, share this conversation. It was a real conversation, transparent conversation. We are indebted to this wonderful couple for doing so. Tomorrow, Dr. R.A. Williams will be with us, Theological Thursday. He will be with us. We'll talk with this preaching giant, who is also the founder and president of the WHW Expository Preaching Conference, which I've been privileged to be a faculty member in the last few years. And then on Monday, what a guest we have on Monday. Monday is Money Matters Monday. Every time we have a conversation based off of Proverbs 3:9 that says, honor the Lord with your wealth. Oftentimes in church, we talk about the 10%, but we don't equip our people to honor God with the entirety of our wealth. And author Mark J. Kwan, we will have both of his books Rich Man, Poor Bank, and also his book, 10 Ways to Avoid Taxes. Both of those books will be gifts to those listeners that sign up to our mailing list and give a gift of any amount. And Mark K. Kwan will be here on Monday. You don't want to miss that conversation. And then next Wednesday, Leah Pump, the founder of the Ladylike organization. And Laurie, you want to hear about this young lady. She started an organization, and it's just what it sounds like, Ladylike. How young girls can learn certain things, manners, etiquette, and things of that nature. Helps them with scholarship. With one of the greatest events every year, COVID. Because of COVID, it was not able to take place this year. They switched it through their administrative prowess to a virtual event. And she'll be here talking to us about her journey. And then on Thursday, Dr. Ray Pritchard of Keep Believing Ministries will be with us. Be on the lookout for an interview with Dr. John Adolph coming up later on this month. Other great interviews coming on later this month. I know I'm supposed to be on vacation, relaxing and retrieving, but this is a unique time. And I think we need to even make certain sacrifices so that certain levels of content is out there. And the reason why we want to do these Money Matter Mondays is because while we are at home and shelter and can't spend money on the silly things we do, this is a great time for us to get our finances in order and get equipped for when God does release us to be able to honor him again with all our wealth, with our wealth. Let's pray. Father, you're good and you're solely good. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for this couple. Thank you for the vicissitudes of life that you caused to bring them together. We thank you for Cynthias Dance, this act of stewardship and sacrifice of worship to you, Lord, that is presented for the hands of your people to encourage, to inspire, to uplift along the way. I pray for each and every one of their children in heaven and on earth. We pray, Lord, that you will continue to be with those that are suffering silently, be it these issues that we talked about today, be it suicide, be it racism, be it sexual abuse, be it gambling, whatever the addiction, whatever the pain, and whatever is birth. I pray that the Spirit of God, the healing power of Jesus Christ will cause illumination and glorification for in your name. All these things we pray. Amen. Thank you all for listening. We out. Have a